I'm Jess.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Beyond the Shelves. Hello, everyone. Happy Pride Month.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Welcome back to Beyond the Shelves. Today, we are going to be talking about Pride books. Specifically, we're going to be talking about children's books, and we'll get into that a little bit more, why we're discussing children's books. But before we get digging in there, what's going on at DMPL, Sarah?
Well, two big things. But the big one that started Sunday here at Central Library is the Summer Reading Challenge and the Adult Checkout Challenge. Though we didn't get the hundreds of kids in for the adult challenge.
No. People were like lining up, waiting.
But yes, summer reading officially started on Sunday at the branches that were open, and then today for all the other branches. So get down here. For the kiddos, they get a free book just for signing up. Adults, you can put your name in for some cool prizes. I don't know what they are.
You get a magnet.
Okay.
So for the checkout challenge,
I was like, I'm glad. Jess knows what they are.
You get a magnet when you take your first entry form, and then you get entered for a drawing for a T-shirt kind of prize pack.
Yes. That's right.
But yeah, it's a T-shirt. It's pretty cute. It says, "I spent my summer reading."
I signed up for this shirt. I don't know why.
I also we could purchase them,
yes.
And I definitely did, because for once it's not a light colored shirt, which I prefer a darker colored shirt. But either way, yeah, get to any of our branches. You can get the forms for both and get the free book for the kiddos and the magnets for the adults.
Yes. And then our final Avid is coming up, and it's Jasmine Guillory, which I'm really excited about because she's a romance author.
She's great.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and she's being moderated by Denise Williams,
also great,
who's also a local romance author, is fabulous and also hilarious. But that is Thursday, June 13th at 7 p.m. at the Central Library. Doors open at 6 p.m. So
6 p.m. Yeah, you guys should come. It's going to be a good one. It is the last Avid of the year,
which I can't believe.
Yeah, we've had a big lineup this year.
Yeah,
we've had some big hitters.
I'm exhausted, and I did absolutely nothing to prepare for this Avid season.
Same.
So there's a couple big things happening.
Love it.
But what are you reading now, Jess?
Let's see. I just finished 2 books. So I just finished a book that's not coming out until July 7th. And it's not even like a book I normally would pick up, but it's called God of the Woods by Liz Moore. Liz Moore wrote Long Bright River, which was a couple, maybe 5 or so years ago. I would say literary mystery is where we're going here.
Yeah.
So we're thinking like, a very, it's so beautifully written. God of the Woods is about a rich, i.e. terrible family who owns a forest preserve in the Adirondacks and then also a camp. And their son goes missing, and then 5 years later, their daughter goes missing. And so you just go in, like you're literally at the camp. You are invested in these characters. It's beautifully written. It's a meditation on just kind of how terrible rich people are, I guess. But it's a lot more than
meditation on that.
But it was like one of those books, and it just doesn't happen very often for me, where like I could not stop reading it. And I wasn't listening to it; I was reading it because it was like an advanced copy ebook, and I just like unputdownable. Like I would get up and like read the 20 minutes before like I got out of bed in the morning. Usually that's for scrolling, okay? But I was reading because I was like, I need to know what happens, because you also want to know what happened to these 2 kids, and you do find out. You do find out. There is a good ending. It really ties it up in a good way. But I absolutely loved it. 5 stars. I do put it on hold, you guys. I highly recommend it. I like a literary mystery too. Like I like a mystery that's like written more like fiction.
I like when my mysteries are less mystery.
But I think what I said to my coworker, Steph, I said, I mean, there's cops in it, so it's a mystery. Because there are. The audiobook that I just finished reading is Rebel Girl, My Life as a Feminist Punk by Kathleen Hanna. Kathleen Hanna is the lead singer of Bikini Kill and La Tigra, basically the founding member of the Riot Girl movement. It was a delightful audiobook because it's just like these little snippets. I love her voice. I don't think if you maybe aren't interested in the material, it might not be for you, but I am deeply interested in the material because I definitely remember like sitting in a car with like a cool girl, like listening to Bikini Kill when I was in 9th grade. And like, I just have like all these feelings about that time. So it was really interesting hearing it from her perspective. And she talks a lot about how, I mean, she talks about everything, all of it, but she does address kind of how white the movement was. And I do really appreciate that she did not shy away from talking about her, like the things that she did wrong with Riot Girl. So it was super good.
And she read it, like the audiobook?
She read it, yeah. I listened to it on Spotify. I don't think we have it in our library catalog. But you know what? Spotify Premium, thanks. And although it took me a month, I did finish The Poppy War. It took me a long time. I had to just keep I had to go back to it in chunks, and not because it was like upsetting, which it was, but it was more just like I wasn't used to that writing, that like dense like world building fantasy writing. I didn't realize that there was a lot about psychedelics, which I was really into. That's like the shamans take psychedelics to like access the gods. It was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. Chapter 21 was upsetting, but like I guess I've just read a lot of really messed up stuff because it did not like I say I was expecting worse, because if you know what this chapter is, it is really bad. But I think I was just expecting to be more emotionally impacted by it, and gosh, again, if you've read this chapter, you're going to be like, you're a terrible person, but it was
Jess
really...
is dead inside.
Yes, absolutely. But I really liked it. It was a 4-star read for me just because I think that as I keep going, I feel like the series as a whole will most likely be like a 5-star series, but you know, it wasn't a perfect book, but I did really like it, and I will definitely read the second one. I'm kind of excited that now I know the world, I'll probably listen to the second one. And then I'm currently obsessed with a book that I am so close to being done with called In Universes by Emmett North, which is short, and it's about this person, Rafi, who they keep like living their life over and over again, but not in that like Matt Haig way, you know, or like it's not like the, you know, classic you end your life and you keep like living it over and over again. It's more about like dark matter and like universes that are living up next to each other. So it's just like these little snippets of this person's, their life, Rafi's life, and like the same people keep showing up in different roles. There's some like really beautiful magic realism. It is so beautifully written, and it is definitely going to be one of my best books of the year, no question. I've been recommending it to everyone.
I feel like time slipping and multiple lives are very like in right now.
Yeah, and like Rafi's a like a physicist, and like is studying like dark matter and like actual parallel universes, which is I love that stuff. So interesting.
Because very different, but this is even not one of the 4 that I'm going to talk about. But like I just finished The Husbands, which has the same kind of you know, this idea of like you just put the husband up in the attic and a new one comes out. That doesn't.
I think we all just want to like live in a different world. Is what this is. I think we all just want to go to that alternate universe. But so yeah, I feel like I have been a season of good books. I've been reading a lot and loving a lot, which is always fun when you like hit your stride. So, which leads us to what are you reading, Sarah?
I have been duped again, Jess. So I brought it up last month that I was starting Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. I am still in the middle of Winter's Orbit. I was lied to by marketing. It is not Maxwell's fault, but they bill it as kind of like a sci-fi romance.
That is what I have generally thought. That's what I would think it is.
At least so far, and I've looked at other reviews, and I'm not the only one who's been duped. It's like a more of a political sci-fi with the slowest of slow burn romances, which is fine if I would have known that when I picked up the book. So I set that down to pick up The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley, which also lied to me.
I read Ministry of Time, so I agree that book was marketed weird.
Yeah, so I'm about 100 pages out. It's good, but again, I don't think the marketing really pushed the romance and not everything else about this book. And I'm wondering if it's because it is so different that it's one of those, like, you just gotta read it kind of books.
I think that is for sure what it is. But even the romance in the book doesn't really work as, like, a traditional romance to me. It's not like if I'm reading, you know, like Emily Henry or like Casey McQuiston, it's not like that type of romance. I mean, there's love, and sex, but like it's just different,
and I would not say like that's the point of the book either. Again, I'm 100 pages out, so I've not finished it.
I won't spoil
it. So far, it's not been the book I thought I was going to be picking up. At all.
Yeah, I feel like you just have to go in, like, don't read. Like, I feel it'd be best to read that book blind. Like, don't know anything about it. Just pick it up because the cover's pretty. And be like, here we go. I'm along for the ride.
Judge that book by its cover and nothing else, and you'll be good to go. It also has like a time travel element to it as well. So those are the two books I'm reading while Laura Olympus sits on my nightstand just being like, read me.
Waiting for you.
Read me, please. I just finished listening to The Catch by Amy Lee, which is a romance that was... okay. It fell a little flat for me personally. That might have been a little my fault. It's the third in a series, but like romances, you generally don't have to read the series. But I'm wondering if I kind of knew the female character leading up, I would have cared more. And I just picked up You Again by Kate Goldbeck, which also has an amazing cover. It was available. It looks like a very fall book, so I think I'm going to be disappointed just because it's not fall. It's 80 and muggy outside.
That book could have been shorter. That was my complaint about You Again.
Well, the way I'm listening to it, if I feel that way, I'll just speed
fast
it
forward. I think I read hard copy read that one instead of listened to that.
I've heard very mixed reviews. I know people who loved it and people who were fine with it, and so I finally need to be like, I need to have an opinion on it.
Yeah, I am curious, like, do the people who love it, are they the, like, diehard romance readers, and the people who didn't are like me, who are like, meh, I like romance, I like it here or there, I pepper it in, I enjoy it, you know? I wonder if that's, I wonder how that
I'll have to, like, I'm trying to remember Paige, who's been on the podcast and read it. I think she loved it. She did, yes, okay. I'm glad I'm not crazy. Which her and I don't always have the same taste, so it wouldn't surprise me if I walk away from it being like, it could have been shorter. We shall see.
I guess I don't really remember much of a fall vibe, so maybe it's just the cover.
I think maybe it's just the cover, because so far, it also it was compared to like When Harry Met Sally, because it's the same kind of like they meet, you know, years apart from each other, like the movie, and I love that film. So I was like, well, you're not going to beat Nora Ephron, you're not going to, you know, so I don't think, but I need to like take that out of my mind. I don't think that's fair to the book.
I definitely will say that I put You Again on hold, like, a long time ago. I read it last year, I think maybe this year, who knows. I put it on hold, and then I watched When Harry Met Sally because I've never seen that movie. It's crazy. I just had never seen that movie, at least to my knowledge. Maybe when I was a kiddo and I don't remember it, but like I have no recollection of it. So the movie was like real fresh in my mind. And obviously there are scenes that everyone knows scenes, you see them all the time. But it was really fresh in my mind when I read the book too, and I don't know if that colored what I thought as well. So
no, it is my go-to feel-good movie, or if I don't know what to watch, or if I'm, you know, it doesn't matter. Specifically, I mean, I love Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. They're fabulous, but I watch it for Bruno Kirby and Carrie Fisher, who are the friends in that film.
Yes, they're great.
Yes. I absolutely adore them in that film. Anyway.
Delightful.
So that's what I'm reading right now.
I love that. I hope that I wish you luck. I wish you joy. I wish you finding what I have, which is just like unputdownable books that I'm obsessed with. Like I can't stop listening or reading. So
I have a bunch on hold. Give me a month. I think next month we'll have a different opinion.
I love
a bunch that are waiting for me in the near future.
I'm now also kind of stuck as that goes, where you're like, what do I do now? Everything's been so good. I have to pick another good one. Oh, anyways, okay, so today, June is Pride Month, and we here at the library proudly support the LGBTQIA+ members of our community, but Sarah and I really wanted to talk a little bit more about children's books this podcast, because with the current political climate and book bans continuously happening across the nation and seem to not stop, we really wanted to give some recommendations for books that either could have been banned, will be banned, just books that kids can see themselves in, because that's so important, and that other kids can see those kids in and create empathy. So we are going to talk about some kids' books today.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I went on that's the one thing I also did last week is a deep dive into these books. So I'm so excited to talk about them.
Yeah, I have a couple real winners. I did some hunting too. Yeah. I didn't read all of them.
And me either.
But the younger level ones are a little easier to burn through.
The amount of picture books I read last week to pick the 2.
Yeah. Well, the ACLU stat is that 47% of titles that are challenged generally represent the voices and lived experiences of LGBTQI plus and BIPOC individuals.
Yes.
So that's another reason that we are talking about that, because it is just generally books featuring people with those identities make people uncomfortable. I don't know. Come on.
I guess.
Without going too deep into it. Well, I won't go too far.
We won't make this a sad podcast.
No, but
we're making a joyful podcast about these really amazing books. But it is worth noting this is happening.
Yeah, and we're not gonna stop talking about it.
Nope.
That's why we're doing this, especially this month. Be informed, know what's happening. We talked about it, I think last month, about the lawsuit that all the publishers are in on, that are suing the state of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, state of Iowa. So specifically, maybe can we just say it specifically?
But yes, the state of Iowa.
So, do you want to? I will say we did break it down into younger. We both have some younger recommendations, some middle grade recommendations, and then some teen recommendations. If you're looking for adult recommendations, feel free to reach out to Book Chat.
Yes.
We do, every branch should have a bookmark out with suggestions for Pride books, for adults and kids. So, yeah, definitely. If you're looking for more adult recommendations, please reach out, because I have a million of those too.
Or more age specific. You have an 8-year-old and you want age specific books for them. Yeah. We can make that happen too.
Yes.
Definitely. But yeah, I can start.
Yeah, you want to start with your first book?
Yeah. So starting with the picture books. Mm-hmm. The first one I'm going to talk about is called The Good Hair Day by Christian Trimmer, and it's illustrated by Jay Wang. And it is about this young boy named Noah, and all he wants for his birthday is long hair. He loves braiding his sister's hair. He loves brushing his mom's hair. But he looks around at all the other men in his life, his dad, his uncles, his grandpas, and they all have short hair. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't know how to ask for what he wants. And every year they go and they do a birthday haircut. And they cut his hair. And he cries, and his parents don't know why. And he finally is open and just says, I've always wanted long hair. And so his birthday, he gets everything he wanted, including a wig from his parents. Precious. It's so precious. And it's bright blue, and it's luscious. And so he can braid it and comb it. And then it cuts to the next year where he's going in for his birthday haircut, and it's to his shoulders. And he's like, I just need a trim. And it's just the cutest little book. And it made me smile the whole way through. And the illustrations are beautiful. And so that is my first picture book that I want to talk about. Yeah, it was so cute. And he's so confident about everything else he wants for his birthday. That he's like, I want this game and I want this board game. And it's the one thing he doesn't know how to express to his family. But it's so cute. The other picture book that I really loved was called Free to Be Fabulous by David McMullen, and it's illustrated by Robbie Cathro. And it's again about a little boy named Daniel who loves the pop star Fabulina, and the art. Fabulina definitely has a very Gaga feel to them.
I've seen the cover of this book for sure. It's cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's a school talent show, and Daniel decides he's going to dance just like Fabulina. He wins the talent show, but then the mean comes in, which I love that it's not necessarily a bully or a villain. It could be internal thoughts. It could be his.
It's just called the mean.
It's just called the mean. Mm-hmm. And it's illustrated with this big red bunches of mean faces. And he's trying to get the mean not to notice him, and he thinks if he dims his light, the mean will go away. But a teacher helps him look around him and see that everyone is inspired by him and dancing like him, and he's able to be strong and brave and free and make the mean go away. And so it's really cute, and also again beautiful illustrations. And I do love this idea, without saying it outright, that yes, sometimes the bullies can be external, and that's part of the mean, but they can also be your inner thoughts can be the mean, your anxiety can be the mean, and reaching out beyond that and finding your ways to be brave and free and who you really are is so cute.
I love that is generally like the vibe of a lot of these picture books, because that is for sure my next choice. It is technically it would be a biography, but it is a story of someone's life, and it is for almost all ages, but it is called Strong by Rob Kearney and Eric Rosswood. And what I love about this book is that it really bumps up against toxic masculinity and shows that there are like all different ways to be strong. So it is about Rob, the author, who dreams about becoming a champion strongman. But he feels like he can't fit in because he wears like bright leggings and like unicorn t-shirts, and like the cover has him like, flexing, and he has like a rainbow mohawk, and it's digitally illustrated. It's really lovely. So like he trains to be the strongman, and despite all his training, he flounders at his first big competition because he's in his he doesn't wear his bright, colorful things. He's wearing like boring, he calls them bleak weightlifting gear. And this all changes when Rob falls in love with Joey, who pushes him to wear his like bold colors whenever he wants. The illustrations are so beautiful. The text is really informative. The end matter has like pictures of Rob and Joey, which is like fun to see them in real life, and like pictures of Rob competing in the strongman competitions. It's just like an all around really joyful book about being who you are. The same thing, just not abiding to what people put you in a box to be. So it was. I love the cover. That's what got me. Our children's librarian Jen was like, you should do Strong, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I should do Strong. This is so good.
And also, and anyone who goes to Franklin knows Jen. If Jen tells you this is the book that you're reading, this is the book that you're reading.
It's the book that you're reading, and she's not wrong. She's absolutely adorable. And I'd seen it. I'd read it before. I'd seen it, but I think I saw it when it first came out. Probably, but it's really lovely, and I like that it is like a story, but also a biography. So it's a picture book biography with not a ton of words. So it really. Some of those children's biographies, even though they look like picture books, they are pretty wordy and for more like the 9 to 12 sect. But this is definitely, I think, for younger and older kids. So, the second one, the picture book I'm going to talk about, is the most bright, like vibrant, amazing book. It is called ABC Deconstructing Gender by Ashley Mosso and Chess Needham. It is an ABC book. And I love the dedication. It starts by saying, to everyone out there who has found the courage to be themselves, and to those who have yet to. The authors own a stationery company called Ash and Chess, which you would recognize. If you don't know the name, you would recognize their stuff. They do a lot of really cool, like, Trans Lives Matter stickers. They have a really funny illustrated cartoon bumper sticker that says, honk if you're a silly goose. Like, they have great stuff. I do recommend checking them out. But that's why I was drawn to this book, because I know their illustrations are so bright and beautiful. Each page, it's like a classic ABC book. Each page will feature like one letter represented by, there's like a bold-faced word in the sentence. So it's not like the name or anything. It's like based off of a word that kind of describes a scene. So it's like there's people of every shape, every color, every size on the page. And to like counter those stereotypes, masculine characters are labeled as nurturing and for nurturing, or like feminine characters are tough or protective. Non-binary, gender fluid characters are joyous or gentle. And it's often kind of challenging to like discern like what character is being referenced, like if you're looking at the illustration. And I think that is intentional and it's effective, meant to like broaden your perspective. Like you don't know necessarily who they're talking about. I just think it's a great book that reminds readers of all ages, those reading the book and those listening to the book, that a gender identity is whatever a person wants theirs to be. And I just love it. It is neon. Like, it is so bright. I had it at the pickup window with me this morning at Franklin, and I feel like it was like reflecting onto the window. It's great. I love it. So the ABC Deconstructing Gender. And
then so children's book, middle grade books, kind couple that I picked. The first one was Page Not Found by Jen Wild. I skimmed a good chunk of this book, and I don't remember being like 9, 10, 11, 12 and reading books like this heavy. And maybe I did. Maybe I just don't give the.
Did you not read Bridge of Terabithia?
I did. So like I did. Then I just was like, oh my gosh, kids these days. This is exactly the phrase I was going to use.
It's true though. It's true.
It's true. I just think it's been so long since I've really like read a middle grade novel and got like so hooked that I was like, well, I guess I'm finishing this middle grade novel. But this is about Paige, who learns that her parents secretly enrolled her in an experimental project that studies her autism by putting a nanochip in her brain. And they lied to her and told her she was having her tonsils out, which is why she was having the surgery.
Wild.
And she finds this out through her parents' email, and then so she, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies just like thinking about it.
Thinking about it.
But she finds it through her parents' email, and then she also realizes that the company that owns what's called the Dot, is the nanochip, is merging with like a fake social media company. So she's also afraid that like all of this information about herself is becoming public, and then she goes on a quest with her best friend Mara to find all these other kids that had the Dot put in their heads as well, and try to essentially like take the company down. It was so good. It's page turning. She's also dealing with her own gender and sexual identity. Mm-hmm. She has a crush on her best friend Mara, and all of the kids have different needs and feelings and identities along the way as well. I do say, luckily, it has a happy ending. Mm-hmm. I was talking before about the middle grade novels I feel like I did read growing up is about all these parents who are like either clueless or just bad.
Yeah.
I think we've brought up like Series of Unfortunate Events before. I hate that series because like, how can these adults be so terrible? And though their parents definitely made mistakes, putting a nano chip in your kid, not great. I will say there's actually like good communication and better outcomes with this book.
I like love that these middle grade books are addressing like big topics.
Yes.
Because like, I don't know, reading books can teach you so much about yourself, about other people. Books aren't going to save the world. I never want to say that, but like, if I would have had these like more in-depth books about like my identity or like my life or like who had a parental situation like I did, et cetera, I think it would have been really life-changing. So I think I just love middle grade. I love middle grade. Yes. I do dip into middle grade. I love
Kudos to every middle grade author for taking on these topics and like going full force into it.
And I love the disability rap also, by the way.
Yes.
Like I love or like the neurodivergence. Like it's, there's multiple layers. Multiple layers.
I just like, also like kids having to deal with like social media and access to their private information and just things that like I did not have to worry about when we had dial up. And
that's like a big time topic. Like
yes.
AI, like being a kid online, like your parents posting pictures of you online, like since you were a kiddo, and like you having no choice of that. Yeah. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. So that was my first one. I highly recommend.
It sounds great.
It was so good. The other one, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to read. It came in Friday afternoon for me, but I did read the author's note and it made me cry. So that's where we're at. And it's called Sir Callie and the Champion of Helston by Esme Smith. And side note, Julia Quinn, who wrote the Bridgerton series, has a shoot-off series called The Smiths. So slightly different spelling, but I actually prefer that to the Bridgerton series, and I just want to like call up Esme and be like, did you know
that your name
is very similar to, has anyone told you this before? And like
I'm sure they would be so excited about this, Sarah.
I mean, they'd be like, who are you? Please don't call me again. Stop soliciting. But this book is set in a fantasy world where girls learn magic and boys train to be knights. And it stars Callie, who is non-binary, and so when their champion knight father is called back to serve the crown, Callie wants to be a knight, but the only thing people see of them is someone who can do magic, and so Callie goes into this world it meets other people who are struggling with the same thing, right?
Love it.
Living in this very structured binary world and being non-binary along the way. And then they fight for what they want and what they need, which I think is really important. What I loved and what made me cry about the author's note, which I didn't write, I should have just like brought the book and just read it for you guys because it's so beautifully written. Esme talks about in the beginning of the author's note that there are some big themes in here. And if you're not ready for that or you're not in a place for that, that is okay. Callie in this book will be here when you're ready. Which I just think is like a beautiful way to know that like someone is always there for you, even if it's a fictional person. But anyway, and that you are loved and you are worthy and you deserve to be here. So like kudos to Esme for that. Also, this is the beginning of a series, so if you do love it, there is another one already out. But this book got all the starred reviews, Kirkus, SLJ, book list across the board. And from what I gathered from it before this podcast, it seems like an amazing book.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of that one at all, actually. So I heard of Page Not Found, but I haven't heard about that one. So I'm going to talk about a book called Just Lizzie by Karen Wilfred. That really asks some really big questions. Like, what do you do when you feel like there's a question so big inside of you that you don't know how to put words to it? And how do you even ask that type of question? It follows 14-year-old Lizzie, who is kind of experiencing a lot. Her family had to move because there was a traumatic event with a neighbor. I think there was like a neighbor scuffle. Maybe the neighbor tried to break in. No good. So she has to move, and her brother's too busy in college to really notice or care about her, and her friends are all interested in dating, not dolls, which is funny enough. This is the theme of my second book a little bit too, but like that middle school time when like everyone is like pairing off. So it's really hard for her not to feel like left behind, especially as she tries to explain the fact that she has zero interest in boys or girls or whatever they call flirting. Like, she's like, no thank you. But just as she kind of feels like she's like losing her grip, there is a class lesson on asexual reproduction, and it kind of piques her curiosity, leading her to look up whether people can be asexual too. And suddenly her world like opens up, and she finally finds an identity and a word for all of like her messy feelings, and feels like she has a place where she belongs now, even if people don't believe that it's real, which is something that comes up a lot with the asexual identity. This is a really accessible book. It's super moving. I think it's a really good addition to middle grade coming out narratives that explore identity beyond the more familiar like gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual narratives. But what I love most about it is that it reassures young kids, teens and tweens, tweens and younger even, that you're not broken if you don't experience romantic or sexual attraction. And I think that that is a really important message for a lot of kids. So I love this one. It's called Just Lizzie by Karen Wilfred. My second book is a graphic novel. Oh, I love this graphic novel. So cute. It's called Cross My Heart and Never Lie by Nora Dosnes. Okay. She's Norwegian, a Norwegian author. So this is a translated graphic novel. Ooh. Didn't realize it until I was like halfway through it, because there's a few things that are a little different because it's not in America. Yeah. But for the most part, you wouldn't really notice. But if you love Heartbreaker, which who doesn't? Yeah. I think you're gonna really love this one. It's like a delightful diary style graphic novel. So there's like lots of panels that are like just one page with a few drawings. It's not just like a straight panel by panel graphic novel. It's about Tuva, who is questioning just about everything as she enters middle school, as one does. I think this was also like a little triggering for me because 7th grade was really traumatic for me, like because your friend, just everything is so different.
I think if 7th grade wasn't traumatic for you, I'm not sure we can be friends.
Like Tuva has these goals, like she wants to like get a cool outfit, she wants to write in her diary, she wants to build the best fort in the woods with her friends. friends, which is like the younger side of Tuva, but she also wants like to do cool older kid stuff. But nothing really goes as planned because when school starts, like her two best friends split into rival teams. So there's Team Linnea, are the girls who fall in love, and then there's Team Bao, are the girls who never fall in love. So there's like, this group of girls who get boyfriends and are really interested in that, and then this group of kids who are like, no thank you, and like kind of being like, I don't want to talk about your boyfriend. There's some definite like infighting in these three friends, which again also triggering, but it was done really well, and I really like how it was laid out. And they expect Tuva to like choose a side. Like she's pulled between these two friends, and she gets caught in between, like feeling that she wants to be this kid, but she also wants to be like this grown-up adult. And then a new girl shows up, Miriam, and suddenly now Tuva's like, oh, I am in love. I do feel love. I'm in love with Miriam. And she doesn't know if she should tell her friends, if she should be in team love. She doesn't want to upset one or the other. It's just like classic middle school dynamics and great illustrations. I really enjoyed this one a lot. It's called Cross My Heart and Never Lie.
It's so cute.
It's delightful. It's really, I love the diary style so much. It kind of reminds me, if you have read the adult graphic novel, Dancing at the Pity Party by Tyler Feder, it's very similar in vibes to that. I mean, not subject, but in like the same kind of like full pages and then panels, and like it's not necessarily just like a paneled graphic novel, which is generally what I like more.
All right, so we're moving on to the teen. You have teen, right?
I do have teen. Yep.
Right? Okay, just making sure we're all doing teen next.
Yep.
So my first one is called Canto Contigo by Johnny Garzavilla, and I double checked with someone who speaks Spanish more fluently than I do. The English translation for that is I Sing With You. It is in English. It's not a Spanish book, but the title is in Spanish. The cover is gorgeous.
The cover is so good on this book.
It's gorgeous. It made me want to talk about it immediately. And also then you get into what the story is about, and I was like, oh, yes, check. It's a contemporary romance, so check for me. About mariachi competitions, which being from Iowa and Caucasian, I did not know about. But I'm like, oh, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It sounds amazing.
Just the title alone, I'm very interested.
Yes. So this is about Rafi, who finds out that his parents are making him move. And this is right after his grandfather died, who he loves and who got him into mariachi in the first place. And he's moving, and this is after also he won last year the mariachi national competition.
Yep.
And so he's moving to a new school that also has a mariachi band, but also already has a lead singer, which is what he did for at the old school. And so it's an enemies to lovers. When he meets Ray, who he also may have hooked up with at the last national championship.
Of course
he
did.
Love it. But yeah, so it's an enemies to lovers. But it has mariachi, it has love. You're going to end up wanting to look up all of these like bands and singers that they talk about in the book. And what I love about it too is this idea that like not all change is bad. And so it's just a sweet love story about the two of them, and it's a happy one, which I love a good happy book. You know
me too.
Yeah,
I do. I really do. Especially like romance. Like that's what you read romance
that's
for.
What you want.
Like happily ever after. HEA. You gotta get it. Like
you gotta get it.
That's the point. You can't call a book romance unless there's a happily ever after.
Though they've tried.
They've tried real hard. But like I love especially just a joyful enemies to lover.
Yes.
It's fun. Like, because like that can get a little tense sometimes. Yes. So I love them.
So I highly recommend. It's currently sitting on my desk right now. So if you want it too bad, actually we probably have more copies. The other teen one that I'm going to talk about is called Escaping Mr. Rochester by L.L. McKinney. It is a retelling of Jane Eyre, which I'm going to be really honest with everybody on this podcast right now. I have never read.
I was waiting for it. You've never read Jane Eyre. Wow. Okay.
I've never read a Bronte. Okay. Actually, that's not true.
I've never seen When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah,
I was 42. So like, here we are.
I picked up Wuthering Heights, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. I think I read like the first 4 pages and I was like, what is this? And set it down. It's not for me. Brontes are not for me.
Jane Eyre was like the first, like one of the first, like quote unquote adult books I read, given to me by my 8th grade English teacher, who was like, don't read The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. That's for 4th graders, even though you're in 8th grade. Read this. And so like it does hold a really special place in my heart as like one of those books where I was like, ooh, I'm an adult now.
Adult now. I love that.
And I love that. Shout out to Mrs. Thompson. I love that English teacher. She was great.
Kudos to good English teachers, though.
Seriously.
And clock, like, yeah, you're gonna the Brontes.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways.
But so I personally have not, but I was really hooked, by the cover again, another beautiful cover. But also just this like complete reimagining. Because one of the reasons why I personally have never picked up Jane Eyre is I do know the general synopsis about like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's some. It's a classic, so hopefully you can also Wikipedia it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to spoil it because it also is important for this book. But the synopsis didn't do it for me in Jane Eyre. Let's just put it that way. And I was like, no, thank you. Nope. But in this version, Jane Eyre is not married to Edward Rochester because it's a teen book and that'd be weird. But she is the shrewd, fiery young woman, and she is employed by Edward Rochester, which is true of the books to a certain extent as well, is the governess for his daughter. Mm-hmm. But she soon finds out that there is someone else living in the house. Bertha Mason has been trapped in the house as well. Mm-hmm. And so Bertha and Jane come together to try to leave the clutches of Edward Rochester. They fall in love. It's a dual perspective storyline, so you get both of their thoughts and feelings at the same time, which is really, really cool too. So you can kind of see them growing together as they try to escape Rochester's house, which I think is a better version of the Brontes. But
is this did you might have mentioned this and I missed it? Is it historical too though? Is it modern?
It is historical.
Okay, because sometimes I was just
I did not. No, that's a good point. I did not touch on that, but yes, it is still historical.
I love that. I thought so based off the cover, but I was like, you never know.
It is very accessible, even if you haven't read any of the Brontes. Sure. If you haven't read Jane Eyre, which again I have not. It is also the characters are also Black and mixed race, mm-hmm. so that's a different than the original version where they are all white. Yeah. Potentially, I was reading the Wikipedia article, and there's some thoughts and feelings about the ethnicity of Bertha Mason based on some of the wording used by the Brontes.
Interesting.
Yes, was an interesting little tidbit.
I'm gonna Wikipedia that right now.
You should. And like most things, probably classically, like not in a good way.
Nope.
So this is a twist on Jane Eyre in a lot of different ways. But I highly recommend. Again, it's sitting on my desk right now, but I'm sure we have multiple copies.
I bet we do.
Yes, and I love this idea of like the women in the story kind of taking back the narrative and taking back what's theirs from this Rochester, who I believe in the original gets everything he wants.
Mm-hmm. And that they fall in love. Like, that's so sweet. Like, I just love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The 2 books I want to talk about, I'll start with Icarus by Kay Ancrum. This is a great book. It is, it's like a mythical retelling, obviously by the title, but it's suspenseful. It's almost like a mystery. It reimagines the tale of Icarus as a star-crossed love story between an art thief and the son of the man he's been stealing from. It's like a cat burglar style art thief, not like high level. It's a teenager we're talking about here. But so like Icarus is a cat burglar. He steals art from his wealthy neighbor, and then he gives it to his dad, and then he replaces it with like forgeries. So they sell the originals. His dad sells the originals. He replaces them with forgeries in their home, so they don't necessarily know that art is being stolen from them. One of the times he is stealing from his neighbor, he is discovered by a boy named Helios, who is the son of the owner's house. Helios is trapped in the house by his father for lots of reasons, but Helios won't turn Icarus in if he comes back and keeps him company. You can see where this is going. They start opening up to each other. They start falling in love. As things get worse, there's like this plot that like this revenge plot that plays out. It is really interesting because I really like her work because she writes really poetically sparse, but not in an annoying way. It's not like a novel in verse, but it is really well done, and but it's also sparse. I can't describe it any other way than that. It just gets the story across so well. She also did a retelling of Peter Pan called Darling, where Tinkerbell is a punk rocker. I love it. That's what brought me to this one, among other things. But anyways, it's just like this dark love story that unravels. It's also, there's some disability rep in this one because Icarus has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is not a commonly talked about chronic illness, which is a connective tissue disorder that will cause like joint hypermobility and just basically chronic pain. Yeah. But it's like a quiet disability. So I really like that they Kay Ancrum brought this up and brought this as a part of her narrative. So another like intersectional kind of book, but it's dark. It's a darker one, but it is really good. I really enjoyed it. Also, great cover.
Yes.
How many times can we say that?
Teen books, though, man.
They're so
I mean, across the board, they've been great covers, but teen, I feel like they have like the market on it.
Even their illustrated covers.
Yes,
I feel, which is the next book I'm going to talk about has an illustrated cover, and it's also great. It's much better. There's like an upside down falling person. It's not just two people. Anyways, I digress. The next book I'm going to talk about is adorable. It's called This Day Changes Everything by Edward Underhill. It's really like this Ferris Bueller adjacent whirlwind rom-com about two queer teens who spend this life-changing day in New York City. So their respective marching bands, the two main characters, are in New York City to play the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade.
I love the amount of marching band related teen stuff.
I know, it's great.
I love it.
Beating Heart Baby, another great queer marching band related book. But anyways, Abby and Leo meet and find they have little in common, so we're going grumpy sunshine here. Yes. Abby, who's very recently figured out she's queer, is on a mission to like declare her love to her best friend, while Leo is just trying to figure out how to keep his entire extended family from finding out that he's trans. And although things go wrong at first, grumpy sunshine, Leo and Abby kind of embark on this scavenger hunt to find things Abby can use for her confession to her best friend that she loves her. But obviously you know what's going to happen here. Abby and Leo go from mutual frustration to unexpected friendship to love. I think the sentence from the book list review is what really sold this book for me. I have this on my desk and I am going to check it out and read it because everything about this just sounds so delightful and adorable. But it says, pick this up if you love books where the setting feels like a character, but stay for the absolute magic that is watching Abby and Leo fall in love with each other and themselves. Aww, delightful. It just looks so cute. So it's a real winner. I haven't read it, but I definitely plan on it now.
I never apologize for going off topic. I literally went off about the author's name is similar to a character's name in a never apologize.
I almost did the graphic novel The Princess and the Grilled Cheese, which I will say is incredible, also just full of cheese puns, like one after the other. I love that one too. But I really wanted to get Icarus and This Day Changes Everything in here. So yeah. That is what we've got for you guys.
Yeah, those are
as far as our book recommendations. I hope you seek these out to share with the kiddos and young tweens and teens in your life, or to read yourself and open your eyes to different lives and different worlds. I think kids' books do just such a great job of that.
Yes.
Because it has to be, I don't want to say simplified, but accessible, thank you, to a younger reader, and so they can explain topics that might be hard for adults to understand. For example, they them pronouns I think cause a lot of people frustration, and in like younger children's books it's it's just, they don't even explain it. You just read a book. I mean, it happens in adult books all the time too. But I just think it's easier and to read in a children's book. So yeah, I hope you guys check these out. Well,
I think all we have left
is
the book bulletin.
It's time for the book bulletin.
Book bulletin. I know there already was a sound, but I couldn't help make another one.
Like, there's a sound effect, right?
I know. I just really, I couldn't help myself. What do we want to talk about first? Oh, let's follow up. Last year we talked about
last
year.
month.
Honestly, it does feel like last year. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like teachers at the end of summer are like, woo, and like librarians are like, oh,
they're all coming here.
They're coming to us now. But we talked about how the PEN America Awards, there were a bunch of people boycotting it. They canceled the ceremony. There's a lot happening. But this has developed where the people who boycotted the awards, who did not accept the awards, that prize money, PEN is donating to Jewish Voices for Peace, which is earmarked for relief in Gaza. So they are trying to do better.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So
just a small update for that. And this book bulletin is not nearly as long as last month's.
No. This is going to be a shorter bulletin. Not as much crazy stuff happening in the book world.
Or at least we didn't find it.
No. And if it is, we'll tell you about it next time.
But I think one of the big ones is the RWA, which is the Romance Writers Association, went bankrupt. And that was announced this last week. And if you aren't following the RWA, which, I mean, who isn't?
I mean, there is a lot. I mean, it is kind of interesting. Even if you're not a romance reader, this drama is drama.
Back in, I think, 2019, so this is how long ago this was, the RWA, imploded on Twitter, when it was still Twitter. Courtney Milan, I believe.
Yep, it was.
Got essentially, her hand slapped, I guess. I don't remember the exact, punishment she quote-unquote got from the RWA for essentially responding to someone else's comment on Twitter about racial diversity in romance. So that imploded on Twitter.
There was so much and it's interesting that this all went down before 2020.
Yes.
Which I think was a real I hate saying that a racial reckoning, but it was a time, I feel like, in our not so distant past that people really looked at diversity in organizations more than they maybe did before.
Yes. And so a lot of very famous authors publicly left the RWA. They, I'm blanking on the name of the Ritas. That's the awards.
Yep.
Many of them pulled their books out of the Ritas, which were coming up at that time. And I think the RWA probably, don't quote me on this, put out a statement of we'll do better, and then nothing happened. And so this week they put out a statement that they were going bankrupt, and it is along the lines of because they couldn't get enough people to show up to the RWA conference coming up in Anaheim, and so they owe a hotel lots and lots of money
because they booked all these rooms and then no one came. Also, the RWA has a terrible logo, so I like to joke that this is the reason they're going bankrupt. It's just get a better graphic designer.
Come on, marketing. But no, so that is a big thing that happened. We do have a coworker who is part of the RWA, and she had been given an email probably a week before it went public, and at no point in that email did they talk about the fact they were going bankrupt.
I love that.
Just that things were changing and stuff is happening. So that's really big. And this just happened, so I don't know if they're gonna kind of continue, take a step back, how that's gonna go forward. But you look at, again, we talk about this a lot, but the romance world, romance books are the highest selling genre. So the fact that genre can't keep a association together is kind of wild.
Yeah, and there are so many great romance books out there, and BIPOC romance books and authors.
Yes,
tons. And it's more and more, I mean, you know, publishing in general, like, we don't need to go into it deeply, but has a diversity problem, for sure. But I really, it's just wild to me because I just sometimes, in my mind, I think of romance as a pretty diverse genre.
Yeah.
As of recently. And I love that they, like, maybe that people feel more comfortable because they aren't, like, you know, they're like, well, those people can, they're going away.
Yeah. And I will say, from what I remember in 2019, when I was, like, eating up the tweets about the RWA, I think what is most devastating is the fact that there are really robust chapters. So you take away all the famous romance authors, some of these lesser known romance authors, or the self-pubbed or not pubbed yet romance authors really got a helping hand through their local chapters, which I don't know how they're going to sustain themselves without the, like, national overarching association. Wow. So that's a big bummer.
It is a big one. Last tiny little piece of news that I just read today, so I'm coming in hot with this one. If you are a mystery reader, longtime writer Jacqueline Winspear and her character Maisie Dobbs, Maisie Dobbs' last novel was just released, or is just releasing next week. I said I was getting the pub dates and then I didn't. I think it just came out, maybe, or will come out tomorrow.
You're looking at me like I know the answer to this.
Or anyways. Maisie Dobbs no more. So I think it's like it's huge. It's like 18 or 20 book series. So I'm really interested to see what Jacqueline, if she'll create a new character or if there'll be something, or if she's retiring. I didn't read anything other than it's her last Maisie Dobbs book.
That's crazy. And because, you know, people, like, other mystery writers who, like, write a character until that author dies. I mean, Sue Grafton.
We all know there's no Z.
There's no Z.
And on that note, we will end this podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.